Okay, so today we're going to be joined by Stuart Morgan and Peter Arnott from PracticeThinkers.com. Good morning, gentlemen. I guess it's morning
Morning,
here. I don't
good
know what it is
afternoon.
over there.
Thanks for having us, Rob. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I've been watching your stuff on Instagram and it's intriguing. So I figured it'd be a good time, good opportunity to learn more about your project. Um, I think we could start by you telling us each a little bit about your backgrounds and how you came about this concept and where do you think it's
Well, let,
going.
let, let Stuart go first because it's his concept. He came up with the idea in regards to that.
How far back do you want to go? It's like, it, so yeah, I think we'll go back to, I went to I'm a PGA pro. I did my, um, I'm a PGA member and whatnot. So I went through that education. And then as soon as I finished that, I couldn't wait to get out and see the big bad world. So I went and ended up working for David Ledbetter Golf Academy. So I could, I'd go to different locations and whatnot, and became very kind of close to lead during that time, and ended up teaching out on tour when I was 25 years of age, which I still to this day think you should have a license for that. And at 25 years of age, I probably shouldn't have had that license because you're dealing with a lot of people's livelihoods at the end of the day. And I just, when I look back at it, I probably didn't have the experience to do this. And then I kind of got interested in the practice stuff through a mutual friend of Peter and ours, through a guy called Graham McDowell. And I went to a seminar at the PGA, and I was like, oh my God, like, what is this? Like, I'd never heard of like the language he was talking, and some of the concepts he was talking about. So that sent me in a bit of a down the rabbit hole of like trying to find out more. And I ended up at that point, this is like in 2010, ended up reading a lot more kind of literature, or academic literature, not just golf books and whatnot, and started to look a little bit broader. Um, became And basically, if I jump back, I played football as well when I was younger, and I was a pretty good. And at some point, I started to kind of think, when we're playing football and we're building up to a game and whatnot, practice and training was different all the time. It wasn't the same. And all I was seeing with golf is that it was kind of the same all the time. And it might not have been, but to me, from looking from the outside in and watching players doing what they were doing, it just seemed like that to me. So I started to then think, well, why don't I think like practice needs to be different at different times for different things and whatnot. And that's really when I started to kind of put pen to paper and come up with this concept, which has obviously evolved massively over a long period of time. Um, Became really kind of quite close with Anders Ericsson and um, Robert Bjork when I kind of moved to the States and whatnot, and started to kind of like put it into fruition. So the idea wasn't just an idea; we started to kind of implement it in kind of coaching sessions and whatnot, and I still do that to this day. And like I said, it's evolved quite a lot in the sense, but the kind of the primary structure is still the same, but the inner workings of it has evolved through like my reading and speaking to Pete and other like-minded individuals ultimately. And now I'm doing my own research, so it's kind of like we might have to, at some point when I kind of dive into all the data, we might have to revisit this again and start to go over it again. But, well, I hope not, but let's see.
Well, it takes a lot of courage to double back and correct yourself. I mean, that's part of the scientific method. You find there's something that didn't, and you have to admit it and go back and say, okay, let's
Yeah.
double back, and that's. So, Peter, where do you come in?
Well, so slightly different background to Stuart. I was a project manager in IT until about 16, 17 years ago. and then kind of had an opportunity to change my career, did a coaching degree and then a master's degree, and our mutual friend Graham McDowell was my lecturer, so that's kind of how we met, and he pushed me on to his area of expertise at the time. He was doing a master's degree in skill acquisition, so basically how to practice, and he was doing a lot of PGA stuff, like seminars and stuff. So that's how Stuart and I met, and then I ended up doing a master's degree interviewing 7 European Tour players on their experiences developing towards tour and then on tour. Just because I'm really interested in I work at not quite as high a level as Stuart, but I work with a lot of elite level players up to challenge tour level at the moment, and that's my area of interest. You know, if I'm going to work with them, I want to research them because I've never played at that level. So it's like, I think Stuart's very similar with his PhD at the moment. He's trying to understand, he's interviewing top players, aren't you, Stuart, on their practice history and
Yes, we've
what they're doing.
interviewed so far like
Yeah,
18 elite players. So on the ladies' side and the men's side, and the kind of the minimum requirements in the ladies that they play Ladies European Tour and LPGA Tour, and on the men's side, the top level tour, so PGA Tour, DP World Tour, and the Live Tour. So that was the kind of the ethics what we went in. So 18 players is a lot, and when you see the amount of data that's kind of coming out of that, it's pretty interesting, I have to say.
Yeah, it looks like I'm sorry. Uh, so everybody's hurting in paths that are more leaning towards technology, AI, and the mechanics. I used to take lessons with Michael Hebron. Mike Hebron is a
yeah,
long
yeah,
time guru,
yeah,
and now he's into like this. Forget about the swing; it's the thinking and all that. And I think
yeah, yeah,
that's you guys are pretty much onto something. Now, Stuart, you with Ledbetter background and everything, we know that technically Hogan invented practice, right? And I'm sure that this was like secret in the dirt, trial and error stuff. But I would imagine that Nick Faldo would have, beat his fair amount of balls, right? So,
He was kind of interesting though, Faldo, because like I always used to think that as well. And then I had dinner with him one day in Hilton Head, and he said the best thing that he ever had when he was practicing, especially when he was younger, was he had a practice area at Welling Garden City, and it had a tree in the middle of it, and it had a green and like a couple of flags on the green. So every shot he hit when he was younger in practice was always contextual to what he was trying to do, like on the golf course. So I think people get misconception of he was just a ball beater, but he'd also learned this skill, and he's probably one of the best I've ever seen at doing absolute mental stuff, like 10 minutes before going to the first tee, and then all of a sudden he just switches on. And I think when you look back at his history, it was because of that kind of formative time at Welling Garden City when he was always hitting shots to a flag and a green, and there was a bunker and hitting it around trees and stuff like that. So yeah, it's interesting how we perceive things and what the reality is.
yeah. And
you're
Hogan's
not the. Good, Peter.
Hogan's book. Did he not have a tree as well? Like he did different trajectories, didn't he?
that was a
Yeah,
that was a good.
yeah,
A
yeah,
tree. He had a tree at Seminole where he tried to just step back 10 and.
yeah,
But you're not the first person that mentions that regarding Faldo. So I was talking to somebody else who worked with him at Ledbetter. He said that Faldo was actually the ultimate field player.
Mm.
And on 13 in 96, I think, when he's up against Norman,
mm,
he's in the fairway and he's got like a 5 wood or some kind of wood. And he just like he's looking like he's never gripped a golf club in his life. You follow me? Then he puts it back in the bag, and Fanny hands him an iron. And until he goes, oh, pulled out an iron. Looks like he's going to lay up. No, he just didn't want to hit the 5-wood. He'd rather hit a 2-iron, and he hit it on the green. And it's like, he just couldn't get comfortable with the lie or whatever. It was a feel situation under pressure. You know
He
what I mean?
told me that was his second best shot he'd ever hit in golf.
Wow. Yeah.
And his best shot was the 3-iron he hit at Muirfield into 18 to win the Open. Like, just kind of never. He said, he goes, I'm shaking, like I cannot believe, like I almost can't feel my hands and my arms, but I still executed the shot anyway. It's just
Yeah.
amazing to be fair.
Yeah, right. He needed even par. He shot 18 straight pars, right? Was that the?
And I
Yeah.
also think, Ralph, when it comes to like when we're looking at training and looking at practice, first of all, I don't think we really know what the greats have done. I think it's anecdotal story, like there's just stories that have been passed down to us that we absorb and we never challenge to start with. And two, where we look at it is that we look at things like performance and say, well, where are the biggest gains that you can make? And if you're on your own for a real kind of like big chunk of time, practicing golf versus playing tournament golf, well, why would you not, try and learn to train better? Or why would you not try and at least search down that kind of rabbit hole?
Absolutely. I definitely agree. So why don't we go into a little bit of the actual program and your project and how it works and how we feel it could benefit the players. Okay.
Sure.
Pete, you can go on with that.
Yeah, sure. So basically, the concept is Stuart's developed and we've built in an app is it's called Green, Red, Blue. It's called Develop, Train, Perform. Right. So the green practice is basically you're developing skills or you are working on skills that have kind of regressed a little bit. Right. So that would be more exploratory practice. So if you go to Hogan's old book, he's talking about digging out the dirt, but there's a whole page there about exploring different swings, different club face. Like he talks about the exploration part. So that would be basically we're periodizing that. That's green practice. We're exploring a new skill or a skill that we've maybe regressed a little bit on. Right. For example, a flop shot. You know, we're not very good at flop shot, so we're exploring a new skill. Red practice would be testing that. So with raise standards or consequences, right? So you're basically training that to higher level. The analogy I'll use is, especially with elite level players, is or we'll get them to write down where they want to play in a year or 3 years time. So say, I want to play DP World Tour or PGA Tour, right? And then we'll have a look at their training currently and go, well, what part of your training is at the level that you're trying to play at the moment? And most say very rarely. This is the biggest one that's coming out. The app and Stuart's research is the players are not doing enough red practice. They're not stretching themselves and training enough, right? And again, an analogy I'll use is, you got an Olympic weightlifter. He's lifted to a level that he knows he's going to try and lift in performance. Maybe not as much because the adrenaline maybe get him over the line, but it's a certain level, yeah. Whereas a lot of golfers, we find they say, you want to play at this level, but you're training at this level, and you wonder why you're not improving, right? So when you're training below the level, we would say without a target, on a driving range, there's no consequences or standards involved there, right? And then blue practice, perform practice, is basically you're just performing the task, the skills that you've already got. So kind of what we're looking for there is sometimes or a lot of the time at tournaments. You're not learning new skills at tournaments, or hopefully not too many. Why? Because it's extremely cognitively demanding to learn a new skill, right? And when you're at a tournament, it's already cognitively demanding. Stuart, would you add to anything there?
No, and then basically what we kind of do with that with players is like it's extremely flexible within what's actually working within the green, red, and blue phases, but then we try and put that into a kind of a schedule for them, around their tournaments, right? So you're trying to work it back from your tournaments and see when there's windows to kind of like try out some new ideas or whatnot. Where's some windows to really kind of like stretch my level? And where are the windows when I just need to consolidate myself in that blue and just go, I'm just going to execute today. And that's all I'm going to do. And that's just confidence building.
Wow. I mean, I think you guys are on to something. Where, okay, so you launched the app?
We've not launched it yet, but it'll be ready in the next 4 to 6 weeks. It's
Okay.
functional at the moment, but there's a couple of tweaks needed, and we need to get the kind of. But it's very close to being. So if anybody's listening, it's just reach out. By the time this comes out, it'll be very close to being released.
And the other thing, Ralph, within the app, like we could have gone down the route of, click a button, AI produces, whatever it does. But coming from, and it's something I can share to you from the elite performers research, is that it's the actual thinking about what to do, right, for yourself in those kind of days that you're going to practice. That's where the magic happens. It's not just like clicking a button and just having like no autonomy with what you're doing. And that's how we've kind of laid out the app as well. So it helps the players actually go through a process of going, what do I really need to do here to make the boat go faster? Like, because if I just click a button and it does that for me, you probably forget that the next day. You probably don't even remember like what you've done.
Yeah, it's kind of like taking YouTube drills, like with no context, if it's relevant to the individual.
Is there, okay, so I'm not sure how it works, but let's just assume that I'm out there and I'm going through I guess green is the lowest level, the most relaxed, or the most,
yeah, it's
right?
more exploratory. Yeah, you're trying new stuff.
Okay, so you're exploratory. I mean, nothing's happened, nothing's working.
Yeah.
And there are days like that. You're going to come out on the golf course and it's just you don't know. I mean, how do you, like, it's like kind of, I can see how the app is actually very valuable. I'm trying to take the human element
That's a
into
great
it, into
question.
consideration.
So, just to be clear, the app is like it's a practice diary essentially, and you'll see it color coded, right? But to answer your question, green practice, so they're struggling. Obviously, you maybe get an expert involved, right? But I like the Romans saying, "In filth it will be found." In the shit you'll find it, right? So,
Yeah.
so sometimes that exploratory practice, and that's I'll tee Stuart up here, but that's the like difference between performance and learning as well, So like some of the best sessions I've ever delivered are horrendous, but the next day we've clipped on something. Yeah.
Right.
And the other thing as well, we're not looking at this because connected to the app, we have two sides of education. So we have player education and we have coach education. So we're trying to connect the two more together.
Okay.
When the coach is actually away from the player and the player is actually practicing on their own, we're trying to help that coach collect more data so they can help their players even more. Like we don't want a separate. We don't think that there's like, I'll just give the complete autonomy to the player. That's just not how we look at it, because it's a whole marriage together.
Sure. But it's like so my practice is sacred, right? So I don't want to be bothered. I put on headphones. I just want to do what I'm doing. And so that's kind of where I was going. Like sometimes you're out there alone. I'm not going to call my coach. I'm not. I'm just trying to get. It's just the way things work. Now, has it been beta tested? Have you been beta testing it with coaches and players?
We've used users. Yes, users. We have had users using it, and we will be getting more in the near future. Yes. So our first version of it was kind of we didn't release it, but it was kind of November last year. We had quite a few test it, and we realised there was a few features that were lacking. The diary in particular, the visual representation of the green, red, blue. So yes, we have had users throughout using that, but that's not to say that being brutally honest, when we release it, the more users you get, there'll be the odd glitch here
More
and there, but
feedback you can get.
yeah, it's pretty much good to go from a point of view of functionality.
Yeah, it's always in beta until you know what I mean.
I haven't used one of those things.
You haven't run into every single circumstance that could potentially happen until somebody actually goes down that rabbit hole and it gets back to you. Hey, look,
But I'm not even sure it'll ever be finished either. Like, I think it'll just be like,
exactly.
there'll be constant like updates and stuff like that kind of going along. But it's like, like we thought like long and hard of it, and we think it's absolutely a fantastic product for like college coaches in the US who have like their team, and they can kind of have a team, on the app, and they can upload, training to them. They can see what their players are doing. Kind of, let's say in the future, right, where a college coach is doing a recruiting trip. Well, if they know, right, what this player's practice habits are and what they've been doing, pre that, then they might be looking at that individual completely different. So it's like an information gathering kind of tool as well, and that's how we want it. We want it to be a tool that coaches and players use to kind of, and we're very, very clear on it as well, that if you're a lazy a-hole, like, and you do not want to go down this kind of road of like really improving, it's probably not for you.
No.
because
Yeah.
because there's what people are like. It's like we want they want shortcuts all the time, and unfortunately in this sport I've not really met shortcuts, to be fair. It's about getting down dirty, doing the work, and until robots start playing golf competitively, I don't think we're going to see anything different.
Yeah.
So it's specifically designed for the kind of aspiring elite level player, Ralph. It's not for your kind of 1 day a week,
Yeah, it's funny because the way the market works, or the way the U.S. market works, is everybody wants an instant solution, like instant gratification, and they buy the app and they realize there's some work involved, and they're like, wait,
Then they want refunds and all sorts.
Yeah, that's going to happen. It's happened already. Like, with some of the once we explain to a few folk, but that's fine. We know our market, Stuart, don't we? And yeah, we want players that are invested in what they do, because we fundamentally, Stuart's got 2 players for the Ryder Cup in the last couple of years. So using this system, so it's not as if it's not. I'm using it. We're using it every day. And just little things like, even Stuart's talking about for history of practice, but I've used it this week with a player when he was flying at the start of the season, and he's just been working on his swing mechanics a little bit too much. And when we delved into it a little bit more with what he was doing at the start of the season, there was a target involved all the time, right? And in the last couple of weeks, he's been doing more swing work, and he's not had an external target.
Now, I imagine there's like a rhythm, like you said, so a rhythm and a tempo associated with the level and the intensity of practice, or, you could probably gauge, okay, this guy was overdoing it at this point, and then you could get to that point where,
Exactly.
Yeah.
So for another one, where I've looked at his practice, he's done 8 hours practice before a tournament, like a day before a tournament, and had a 3.5 hour putting lesson in the morning. Yeah, and it's like,
yeah, that's too
and
much,
wonders
right?
why he shoots 85.
That happens, yeah. But I could definitely see the usefulness, the utility of it in that structured environment. Like, I was watching, like I watch OSU, Oklahoma State, and these guys, and the way they go about it, there is a set regimented protocol for practice. And even at the high school level here, there's a lot of competitive high schools. And again, with the elite players, not necessarily the elite players, but the serious players that want to improve. So you may not be performing at an elite level, but I myself could get involved with that and try it, and
Yeah,
and
we're
I could see.
happily share it with you, Ralph. But yeah, absolutely.
But I remember when I like way back. I mean, you're kind of looking at like a leisure golfer and like a performance golfer for me. And this is not
Hmm.
the standard. This is the mindset that these players kind of carry. Because I remember I was teaching an ex-footballer, like or a soccer player for your language. They don't. It's footballer in my head. So he played for England. He played like in the Premier League, all his career, but he was 11 handicap, right? So in my head, I'm thinking, hey, he's a leisure player, but he actually had the mentality of a performance player because he always wanted to kind of get better and better and better. So if there's somebody like that, like an ex-athlete or an ex whatever, they will get a lot out of the app as well,
Yeah.
right? Because they like that diligence, so they like that kind of like
Exactly.
the work that kind of goes into it, rather than just I'm just going to turn up tomorrow, not really knowing what I'm going to practice, but I'm just going to go and like hit some balls and whatnot. And then 90 minutes is gone. And like, I'm like, what have I done today? Like nothing.
Right. Just down through the motions, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And the other thing we found again from the research is that so much of like athletes or players practice is linked to their own belief systems of what has come before them or what they've been fed by somebody. And they're not thinking for themselves. They're not going to that process of going, but what do I think I want to get out of today? It's just using stuff that's been passed down to them.
Right.
And again, this whole process gets stuck into that.
I mean, I think you could touch on that, Stuart, regards to then our coach education. Stuart's, you okay with sharing what the biggest influence on the practice beliefs were?
Yeah, it was the coach. So,
Okay.
but they've never challenged their coach's beliefs so let's say a coach is telling them, "Oh, practice this," but they hadn't challenged the coach to go, "Well, hang on a minute, where have your beliefs come from on this?"
Right.
I've
Yeah.
seen it recently where, and it's only because I've had a good relationship. Like a client of mine goes and sees Greg Rose at TPI. Greg tells him like you need to do this type of practice, and he comes to me and he goes, "It didn't feel right to me. What are your thoughts on this?" And I went, "Well, you're right to question that because it's not the right information."
Yeah. And that's. I think social media has done a lot of that in the
Massive.
sense that the amount of followers you have equates to credibility,
Yeah.
and it isn't necessarily, it's scary. It is, but it's where we're living. It's today.
A
It's the
lot
times.
of other players as well in the research just goes like, well, I only know what I know, right? From a practice standpoint, there's no outlet for them to go and like find some new information or find some new. They're not going to go and go onto Google Scholar and type in, you know, sport practice or whatnot, and it gives them like 50 different pages. They're not going to do that, right? So what we've done is we've created a resource, and we'll create like let's say it's a college team, right? Well, a college team can have their own sort of like locker almost, Pete, can't they? They can
Yeah.
have their own sort of portal where all their players are in, doing the education, and also then like through the app. So if they do that, then it's like a community for them as well.
Absolutely.
So the education, just to touch on that, the education is basically around what we've discussed earlier on about the green, red, blue practice, how to do it, how it applies in the app, and then just like some ideas on, how to create standards in practice, how to create consequences in practice. So we're trying to educate the players and the coaches, upskill them a little. Now that the coaches part, the coaches education is far more in depth than the players one. The players one's 5-10 minute videos max. It's pretty light, but what we feel like they'll need, just to help them along the way on practice. And we've had some good feedback on that as well with regards to the players that went through that system. And even just a simple one of like your standards. What standard or level are you trying to train at today? Asking yourself that question. And that's what we're doing in the app. We're asking them questions each day on what level they're trying to play at, getting them to reflect on what they've done in their practice every day. But I mean, it's literally a form that takes 5 minutes, isn't it, Stuart? But
Yeah.
in the future, we'll be able to, for coaches, we'll be able to query, like, for example, how long in the last 2 months have they spent in the golf course? Because a lot of the data we're getting now is like a lot of the best players are spending a hell of a lot of time in the golf course. I mean, it sounds simple, but there's an art to scoring.
Yeah, I think a lot of the guys, good players that I know, would rather just go out and practice, play 9 holes, and get in the actual scoring environment rather than. I mean, everybody's different, but through the years,
in some ways, you say everybody's different, but actually, not all are different, right? Because again, coming out of the data is the elite performers, they do go and play, right? And they play quite a lot, but they separate it. So they think, well, when I go play, I'm just going to play. And when I go and practice, I'm going to practice. When I'm challenging and going, well, why are you not practicing on the golf course as well? And why are you not practicing on the range more like the golf course? There's too much like segmentation of these areas. And we found that it's not like there was recently over the last month or so, like there was a massive meta-analysis done on retention and decay of a skill. Okay, so when I see something of this caliber coming out, my heart starts to pound because I'm thinking, oh my God, what's this going to show? And then we have to do the whole app again. But it actually shows in there that trying to simplify things too much, and what I mean by that, hitting balls into a net, hitting foam balls into a net with no target, that's overly simplistic. And it has a really, really short window of retention. So if that's the case, why are we doing it?
I mean, I'm a golfing machine guy to a certain extent. Homer Kelly said that simplicity, for the sake of simplicity, only leaves out 99% of what you need to know. But now, so there has to be, or there should be, or I'm assuming there is, some point where this turns off and this turns on. And in other words, you're out of the practice zone and into the playing zone, right? And that would that only be when you're competing, or you know what I mean? Like
that's the blue practice. So that's the performance practice. So that's really a vital piece. So when you see players doing all these things at a tournament and like having like Rebuild Wednesday, we call it on tour, or like it's the danger day. If they're not playing pro-am, they start like tinkering around with their swing and stuff. It's so performance-y, like it's so damaging to performance. Whereas all they really want to be doing is going, okay, what do I have today? So what skills do I have? Can I execute these skills to the best of my ability? And can I get prepared for the test that's in front of me come Thursday?
Okay.
That is
exactly. So it's like you dance with the one you bought.
Yeah, 100%. I don't think Ralph,
she's ugly. If she's ugly. You got to work it out. You got to figure it out.
100%. 100%.
Yeah, exactly.
if I'm hitting toe snipers all day, I'm going to aim more down the right trees.
Yeah.
That's exactly what Tiger said. If it's leaking, Tiger said, if it's leaking slightly right, I'm going to play it. That's it. That's what I got. Right? That's what I bought.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
that on you go.
But players can do that building up to tournaments as well. So it's like, let's say there's a day before they go in and a player goes, players freak out when they think they haven't got anything to do, right? And they're almost like looking for stuff to go, like that could go wrong. Whereas if you just go, okay, your game's in a really good shape, can you just show me the skills and execute? Just one ball to that target, another ball to that target. If something's slightly off, no problem. Go and hit 50 shots for all I care, right? Just trying to do this, like trying to drive it better, just to gain some short-term confidence going into the tournament. That to me is why players or people will look at tour players at the tournament and go, well, all they're doing is block practice. Well, yeah, there's probably a reason for that.
Right.
They've probably figured this out.
And there is a lot. Well, there hasn't been enough, I think, coverage of this area of performance. I'm looking at people just kind of half-assing comments in there with no substantial research to back anything up. And through the years, people have written golf books, and they might leave a page or two for practice, and then people talk about structured practice. But it seems like you guys have gone above and beyond that to take it to a new level.
Yeah, I mean, we're basing it off motor learning. So, like, back to what you're talking about, dance with the girl you're with, So, like, or dance with the dame you're with. When I interviewed 7 European Tour players, it was a bit of a leading question, but I said, how often are you on your A game in terms of long game in rounds per year? And basically, it came out 10%. And then my leading question was, if you're hardly ever in your A game, what do you do? And they all talked about having stock shots. One talked about winning a European Tour event with a 25-yard slice, and just accepted what he'd got. And that links back heavily to the research in motor learning, as basically it's a word called degeneracy. And like elite level performers in any domain have multiple ways of performing a task. Back to what you talked about with Tiger there. So, and where we find is that too many golfers maybe follow the Hogan route, or that their belief system on the Hogan route of like trying to ingrain one movement, right?
Or their perception of the Hogan route,
exactly,
when nobody has a clue what Hogan did. Only close to it.
Exactly. That's my point. Nobody. Duh.
and we find that these players are not robust. They've only got one solution, and then that if they've not got that solution, it's easily broken.
It's a shame that in this country, at least, that people have taken on this Hogan attitude about things. And I don't know if you've seen my stuff, you'll see that I've interviewed a lot of Hogan experts, and there's so much contradiction and so much anecdotal stuff that nobody knows what not just that, he played to the media, he played to everybody, the secret stuff, all the come on.
But the thing is, like, I have one of those Time magazines, right? The Secret, right. Is this on the top of the backswing, and I kid you not, he's probably put that out there to screw up most people.
But that's right. I talked to Peter Costas, and he's friends with Tommy Bolt, who at the time, and Tommy Bolt and Hogan were really tight. He said that he just had to do it. He had to say something to get paid on the Life magazine stuff, and that's basically it. But if people take it seriously, and he knows they're taking it seriously, because there's a commercial value to, he launched the Hogan Company, the Iron Company, kind of simultaneously with all this stuff, and there was promotional value in coming up with this thing,
Good on him.
Yeah, he knew what he was doing. He's a lot smarter than most of them. Again, he, he was using social media before there was social media.
Yeah.
All right,
But
guys. So go ahead.
Ralph, we do think that, and this is why we got into this. You know, golf goes through like evolutionary periods, doesn't it? You know, it goes through like the tech period where it kind of like the ball changed like massively, and obviously the driver changed and whatnot. Then the fitness industry kicked off, and it kind of like all of a sudden there's that avenue. Well, we think this could be the next one, to be honest. So how people are using their practice time, and especially um, when you get to a certain point in your life where you're a professional athlete, you have a family, you have family duties, you have other interests as well, you have sponsors duties. Time has never been so valuable, you know, but if you still want to get some work done and some really good work done, there's no other option. You have to be more effective with the time that you have. It's as simple as that. You can't just go and hit 100 balls and then go off to a business meeting and expect that you've done some really good work. It's just not possible.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's the way. See, we're in a day and age where things are like strange. So uh, most people have attention deficit disorder. That's why an Instagram short is 90 seconds. Twitter gives you 130 words. Most people can't go beyond. So it's a check. Okay, I gotta go. I gotta go practice. It's just a checkbox item. I checked it off. Okay, I went. I got a bucket of balls. I hit them. That's done. And on and on and on. I think you guys are on to probably yes the next frontier, which in a sense, based on the fitness and all, I mean, all that kind of you guys are kind of encompassing, or that can encompass, the technology, the fitness. It's all part of the ritual. I think, you know, you
Yeah,
know
it's the same thing. Like, what are you practicing in the gym? How is that going to influence, your
exactly.
capacity to do something? If you're having an equipment fitting, like I challenge the fitters on tour constantly and say, well, why are you not going out on the golf course with your players? You're fitting for optimum, but they don't often hit optimum. It's more like I need to take a little off this shot here, or I need to add something to this shot. Is the ball spinning enough when I do X? There's so many things that cross over from a skill acquisition standpoint, a motor learning standpoint, into loads of different domains as well.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
even
You
the use
guys.
of technology, like Stu's talking about there. You know, amount of times we've seen with good players with TrackMan and they're like trying to get optimal, or hitting up on it, or they're trying to optimize speed, and it's like, but is that actually your DNA? You know?
Right. That's the point. So in other words, and I found because I worked with my coach, and I found that if I stay within my rhythm and my tempo, first of all, I'm not going to get hurt, which now
Yeah,
I have a shoulder because I was trying to chase speed with all this
yeah,
over violent, over swinging. If I swing within myself and I hit the center of the club face, I'm going to probably solve a lot more problems than I'm going to create, right?
yeah,
If I hit it in the center, I'm probably going to eliminate a whole lot of side spin and
yeah.
all the stuff that can. Now, if you like the drama, then if you want to go on a safari, and if you got repellent, I don't know if you guys, I don't know, I don't know if you guys have mosquitoes up there in the North
Oh
Sea.
yeah, I do. I do. Yeah,
Midges,
well,
midges. We have midges. They're horrible little things.
Yeah, I got eaten alive the other day. Yeah, well, so so we're looking at a launch maybe in 6 to 8 weeks.
Hopefully before that, but yeah, I don't know when you're going to release this, but it should be pretty soon after you've released this. Yeah, but if you go to practicethinkers.com, or we're on Instagram, Stuart and I, and there's Practice Thinkers page on there as well. All the details will be on there, but it's very, very, very soon. We're letting a select few trial it at the moment, that have been in our cohort before, in our coach education before, just to make sure it works, as you say, beta test it. But all the feedback so far is extremely positive.
Yeah, I mean, based on this conversation, it sounds like a really good tool. I'm not sure what the price point is. Was it iOS? It'll be an iOS
It's iOS at the moment, yes, and then we're hopefully
okay.
going to go web based. We're not going to go Android, probably never, but because most coaches have
Yeah.
iPads. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
So it's either
unless
one or the other. I got you.
yeah.
Yeah.
But back to your point about hitting the middle of the face. This app just makes it so much simpler. It's not confusing matters. It's making your practice simpler. Yeah, you'll see on the website. It's visual. It's like green, red, blue. What are we doing on a day-to-day basis? It's not cumbersome, but you will have to think.
And
Yeah.
again, coaches as well. Like coaches can create what we call as templates, and the templates can then just be uploaded, like, to the practice diary. So if a college team has 8 players and they have specific practice that they want to do, then they'd upload this to every player, just by clicking on them, and it just automatically uploads. So they have the details, and it's also stored as well. So it's like you don't have to always keep going back to things, and kind of it's there for them.
And Stuart
So
and I will be adding to the database of games, so like the template of games. But ideally, that's just for people to think about what they're doing, not to kind of just do here's what Stuart and Pete do with their players, because we just don't use the same games over and over again with each individual anyway.
And like we said,
okay.
the magic is actually in the process of going through this. So coach with player. Okay, guys, what, like, collaboratively, what would be a really good task or game for you to do today when you're playing? Get the player to think, get the coach to think, and then they come up with something together. They put it in a template, and they always have that then.
Excellent. Excellent. So I mean, I have nothing further unless you guys have something you want to add or you might have missed.
No,
Or okay, cool.
no, really
So what
appreciate
we're
your
gonna
time. Thank you.
oh, thank you, thank you. It's really a pleasure meeting both of you. And so uh, when this goes up, uh, I'll put your Instagram and whatever links you guys may want to provide to upcoming events within this launch and how people can contact you, etc. I really appreciate you guys sharing your time with me. You know,
And one little thing,
go
Ralph,
ahead.
before we go, right? One little thing. We may have to get onto this like later on, but there's one thing that's coming out of the data that like, if you look at what the players are doing, or what the players are telling me they're doing, and then you cross-reference that to actually the practice research from an academic standpoint, there's one thing that we're noticing in there. And when my stuff is published, we'll come back and we'll talk about that. And it's in the app and it's in the education, because it's potentially something that people are missing. And then they don't even know that they're missing it.
Wow. Yeah, you guys are more than welcome to come on and we can
It
talk.
could be,
We
could be
can
amazing.
do 30-minute segments for the rest of my life. I don't care. I have time. But here's the question. So, Stuart, how far are you from you're working on your PhD,
Yes,
correct?
I have all the interviews done, transcribed. So I'm going. I'm the first part is you basically code it now. So you're basically looking for themes within the research, but also doing what they call a narrative review or a literature review. So you start to go through the areas that you kind of like see, and see if there's anything been done on this in the past. And then you cross it and you basically go, well, what's missing from this stuff here to what we know is very
Yeah.
valuable in the research. And that's when you start to come up with the stuff that elite players are doing. That's absolute gold, because they do figure stuff out. Like Hogan, he figured stuff out on his
Right.
own,
Right.
but there's massive amounts of stuff that they will miss, and they won't be able to come up with this stuff. And that's again where we think we can make the evolution in how to practice and how to get more, how to be more effective with your practice, basically.
So now you're gonna have to write a thesis, right?
So I write a thesis, yeah, but we're also
And
looking at like a framework as well to kind of complement what we're doing here as well. So,
No, I mean, because, right, so this, in a sense, is kind of uncharted, at least in the golf world. I'm sure that in sports in general, I'm sure there's people that are actually trying to optimize this particular area. So when you go to defend your thesis, you have to have a panel of guys who know, speak your language.
The one thing I figured out that I have got going for me, it's completely novel research because nobody ever asks elite players, certain like types of questions. So it's kind of there already. So.
Yeah, so you're getting 5 strokes from the field. Guys, it's been a pleasure.
Yeah,
and
thank you for having
again,
us on.
We'll follow up, and I'll post all this stuff. And I really enjoyed talking.
Ralph, thank you
for
very
your
much.
time. All right.
Thank you, Rob.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.